right now. More than 100 federal agents, as we just teased, on the ground in downtown L.A., raiding several businesses, going after drug dealing, gangs, the homelessness crisis all around the controversial MacArthur Park area, as you see.
The home, Skyfox over that home right now, where multiple FBI agents are seen going in and out of this residence, carrying boxes of unspecified items. At one point, a neighbor with luggage in tow was escorted down the sidewalk by...
On paper, the island belonged to a wellness foundation, a retreat for judges, donors, and constitutional education. That was the public version. But when federal agents cut the power at 5:03 a.m., the cameras kept running. Not security cameras, campaign cameras, hidden in palm trees, ceiling vents, and fake stone lanterns across the island. And by sunrise, the FBI, ICE, DEA, and DOJ were staring at something nobody in Washington wanted to explain. A private island fortress, a buried drug lab, $6.1 billion in dirty money, and a sealed archive marked with one phrase, Election Continuity, 2024. The name attached to the island was Judge Elias Varick, a former state Supreme Court justice with friends in federal courtrooms, private banks, port authorities, and political committees across the country. To the public, Varick was untouchable. Measured voice, silver hair, quiet speeches about democracy. He had spent 27 years building a reputation as the man who protected institutions. But inside the FBI's Miami field office, his name had been sitting on a whiteboard for 11 months. Not because of one crime, because of a pattern. The case did not begin with the island. It began in Newark, New Jersey, when ICE agents stopped a refrigerated shipping container labeled as imported seafood. The paperwork looked clean. The seals matched. The customs broker had a perfect record. But one junior inspector noticed something strange. The container was 280 pounds heavier than declared. Not enough to trigger a seizure. Just enough to feel wrong. When agents opened the rear refrigeration panel, they found vacuum-sealed packets packed behind the cooling coils. Not cocaine. Not fentanyl. Blue pharmaceutical powder pressed into capsules and stamped with university initials. Princeton, NYU, Georgetown, Duke. The first assumption was student trafficking, a campus drug ring, small suppliers, high-end pills. But the deeper agents looked, the less sense it made. The pills were being routed through ports, shell clinics, legal charities, and courthouse vendors. That was the first crack in the wall. Because one of the shipping companies linked to the container had also received a federal security waiver signed through a judicial conference fund. And buried inside that paperwork was a name no one expected. Varick Constitutional Trust, a nonprofit created 12 years earlier by Judge Elias Varick. At first, prosecutors were cautious. A foundation name on paperwork did not prove involvement. Powerful people lend their names to organizations all the time. But then a DEA analyst in Atlanta found the same trust attached to a warehouse outside Savannah. That warehouse had received medical-grade chemical precursors from Mexico, Guatemala, and the Dominican Republic. The listed purpose was pain management research. The real movement pattern looked like production. And then came the first witness. Her name was Lena Torres, 24 years old, a graduate student in Boston. She told investigators she had been recruited by a campus wellness program that offered focus medication before exam season. The pills arrived in plain white boxes. No logo, no warning label. Just a QR code that opened a private login page. At first, students thought it was a premium supplement network. Then people started disappearing from class. One student suffered cardiac arrest in a library bathroom. Another crashed his car outside Providence after staying awake for 3 days. Lena said the strangest part was not the pills. It was the survey. Every student who ordered them had to answer political questions. Voter registration status, state of residence, likely absentee ballot use, trust in courts, trust in law enforcement, trust in election results. That detail changed the investigation. Because drug networks collect money, they do not usually collect voter behavior. Inside the FBI's field office, analysts built a map across 3 walls. Blue pins for pill shipment, red pins for shell nonprofits, yellow pins for political data vendors, black pins for courthouse-linked entities. The map started in Newark. Then it spread to Miami, Atlanta, Houston, Phoenix, Las Vegas, Philadelphia, and Milwaukee. Every route touched something different. A port, a campus, a courthouse, a campaign consulting firm, a private security contractor. And at the center of the map was not a cartel boss. It was a judge. But the island still had not appeared. That came from a bank flag in Wilmington, Delaware. A compliance officer at a regional bank noticed 7 wire transfers coming from unrelated LLCs. Each transfer was under the reporting threshold. Each one moved through a different charity. And every dollar landed in an account connected to a property management company in the Florida Keys. The company owned no apartments, no hotels, no commercial buildings, only one asset. a private island 12 miles off the coast, hidden behind mangroves and registered as a religious retreat. The island was called St. Meridian. Satellite images showed a main house, staff quarters, a dock, solar arrays, and what looked like a meditation hall. But thermal scans showed heat signatures underground. A lot of them. Too many for storage. Too consistent for maintenance. The DOJ formed a sealed task force. FBI for public corruption. ICE for cross-border trafficking. DEA for narcotics manufacturing. IRS criminal investigation for money laundering. And one small cyber unit from Quantico for the strangest part of all. The servers. Because St. Meridian was not just receiving shipments. It was receiving data. Millions of records. Voter profiles. Donor histories. Court filings. Student health surveys. Absentee ballot request data. Encrypted messages from campaign consultants. And one recurring folder label. Continuity models. Nobody moved immediately. That was the dangerous part. If the raid happened too early, the case would collapse into headlines and denials. Varick would call it political persecution. His lawyers would bury the evidence. His allies would call the island a retreat. So for 76 days, federal teams watched St. Meridian without touching it. They tracked boats. They logged aircraft. They photographed staff rotations. They watched fuel deliveries arrive under church exemption. They watched luxury guests arrive under fake names. And one night, a Coast Guard aircraft captured infrared footage of men carrying metal cases from the main house to an underground entrance beneath the pool deck. Not bags. Not boxes. Cases. The kind used for hard drives, cash, bricks, and classified evidence transfers. That was when the warrant package changed. The original warrant targeted drugs and money laundering. The revised warrant included obstruction, election interference, judicial corruption, foreign financial routing, and conspiracy to defraud the United States. Even then, approval was not simple. A federal judge in Tampa refused to sign it. Then another in Miami delayed. Then a magistrate in Jacksonville asked why a former Supreme Court justice was being named without direct possession evidence. For 2 weeks, the case nearly died inside the very system it was investigating. And then came the mid-twist. The FBI had an insider. Not a criminal informant. Not a cartel courier. A clerk. Her name was Mara Ellison. She had worked for Varick years earlier, back when he still sat on the bench. Mara came forward after seeing a sealed donor list that included names tied to offshore accounts and private prison contractors. She told agents Varick had a phrase he used behind closed doors. Control the legal memory, and you control the future. At first, nobody understood what that meant. Then she explained. Varick did not just want money. He wanted leverage. He collected secrets the way other people collected art. Judges with offshore accounts. Campaign officials with hidden payments. Port inspectors taking cash. University administrators burying overdose reports. Local clerks who could delay registrations. Consultants who could target pressure campaigns. The island was not merely a hideout. It was an archive of compromise. That was why so many powerful people protected him. Not because they loved him. Because they feared what he had stored. Mara gave investigators the detail that unlocked the warrant. There was a hidden room beneath the island chapel. Behind the stone altar, Varick kept a manual override panel. The chapel floor could open. Below it was a concrete corridor leading into what staff called the record room. No cameras allowed. No phones allowed. Only Varick, 2 security chiefs, and selected guests. The raid was approved 48 hours later. Operation Black Meridian began before dawn. 3 teams moved at once. The FBI came by air. ICE and DEA came by water. A DOJ evidence team waited offshore with digital containment equipment. The plan was quiet entry. Disable communications. Secure the dock. Freeze the servers. Separate staff from guests. Find the chapel. But the island was prepared. As agents approached the dock, floodlights snapped on across the shoreline. A siren cut through the trees. Then drones lifted from the roof of the main house. Small black surveillance drones. 6 of them. They moved fast, scanning the water and feeding live video to someone underground. Agents later found out the drones had facial recognition loaded into them. Not experimental. Operational. One DEA boat took evasive action near the eastern pier. An FBI helicopter hovered low over the tennis court. The palm trees bent under the rotor wash. And through the front windows of the main house, agents saw people running with laptops, paper files, and silver cases. That was the first cinematic moment of the raid. A man in a white linen shirt sprinted across a marble hallway carrying a hard drive tower against his chest. An FBI breaching team hit the side entrance. The man turned toward a fireplace, pressed a panel, and vanished behind the wall. Agents reached the fireplace seconds later. Behind it, they found a narrow service tunnel descending under the house. The island was larger underground than above it. The first level looked like a luxury bunker. wine storage, private offices, medical rooms, a conference suite with soundproof glass. But the second level was different. The air smelled chemical, metallic, sweet. The DEA team found the lab behind 2 sealed pressure doors. Inside were stainless steel reactors, pill presses, drying racks, and drums of precursor chemicals labeled as cleaning solvents. One wall held university-branded capsule molds. Another held shipping labels for clinics in Chicago, Austin, Raleigh, and Denver. The lab could produce hundreds of thousands of pills per week. But the most disturbing discovery was in a side room. Rows of student IDs, not real cards, profiles, names, photos, campuses, health data, political survey answers, debt status, and family income. The drug operation was not just selling pills. It was building dependency, then using that dependency to harvest information. And that information fed something bigger. Upstairs, agents found guests hiding in a panic room behind a library shelf. A former campaign treasurer, a port logistics executive, 2 private security consultants, a retired judge from Arizona, and a data strategist who had worked on several national political operations. None of them were supposed to be on the island. All of them had arrived under aliases, but Varick was not with them. For nearly 30 minutes, agents could not find him. Then Mara's information became crucial. The chapel. It sat at the western edge of the island, small and white, facing the ocean. From the outside, it looked harmless. Inside, agents found candles still burning, a Bible on the altar, fresh footprints in dust near the back wall. An FBI tech lifted the altar cloth and found a biometric scanner hidden under the stone lip. They forced the panel. The floor unlocked with a deep mechanical groan, and the altar slid backward. Below it was a staircase. At the bottom was the record room. This was the second visual discovery that changed everything. Shelves of cash rose from floor to ceiling, not scattered, cataloged, wrapped, tagged by source. There were dollars, euros, pesos, and cryptocurrency cold wallets sealed in evidence-style bags. A financial crimes agent later estimated the total value at $6.1 billion. But the money was only the surface. In the center of the room stood server racks humming behind glass. Next to them were file cabinets labeled by state. Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Florida. The 2024 election documents were inside. Not ballots. Not some cartoon version of fraud. Something colder. More bureaucratic. Lists of officials to pressure. Lawsuits drafted before events happened. Media leak schedules. Data models predicting which counties could be destabilized by delayed certifications. Payments routed to local operatives through civic groups. Internal memos discussing how to create legal uncertainty windows. That phrase appeared again and again. Legal uncertainty window. The plan was not to hack voting machines. It was to manufacture chaos around the process. Slow a certification here. File emergency motions there. Push targeted rumors into specific communities. Fund watchdog groups that were not watchdog groups. Exploit addicted students as online amplifiers. Use compromised officials to stall. Then let the courts decide under pressure. And who had spent a lifetime preparing to influence courts? Judge Elias Varick. That was when agents found the final door. At the back of the record room, behind a steel archive cabinet, was another passage. It led to a concrete chamber with no windows. Inside, Varick sat at a table, calm, fully dressed. Phone destroyed beside him. A glass of water untouched. 2 hard drives placed in front of him like bargaining chips. When agents entered, he did not run. He did not shout. He simply said, "You have no idea how many names are in those files." That became the line everyone remembered. Because it was not a denial. It was a warning. The deeper investigation after the raid moved fast. By noon, federal teams had seized 38 servers, 112 cold wallets, 23 encrypted phones, and over 4 million pages of scanned documents. By evening, arrests began in Miami, Newark, Phoenix, Houston, and Washington, D.C. Not all high-profile. Some were clerks. Some were brokers. Some were security contractors. Some were non-profit directors whose names had never appeared in public. That was how the system survived. It did not rely on one giant criminal act. It relied on hundreds of small permissions. A shipment waved through. A report buried. A data request approved. A donor transfer ignored. A court filing timed perfectly. A student targeted because they were broke, anxious, and useful. One of those students was Lena Torres. After the raid, agents showed her part of her file. Not the whole thing. Just enough for her to understand. Her order history. Her survey answers. Her campus messages. Her family address. Her absentee voting status. Her anxiety diagnosis from a clinic she had visited once. She had not been a customer. She had been an asset. That was the human cost hiding beneath the billion-dollar headline. People were turned into data points. Addiction became leverage. Debt became pressure. Trust became a weapon. And the villain was not hiding in a warehouse with armed guards. He was giving speeches about civic duty. For years, Elias Varick had built a public identity around restraint. He never sounded extreme, never moved recklessly, never left fingerprints where ordinary investigators would look. He understood institutions because he had lived inside them, and that made him more dangerous. A cartel boss can be hunted. A corrupt judge can hide behind procedure. A trafficker needs secrecy. Varick needed legitimacy. That was the final realization. The island was not the center of the operation because it was remote. It was the center because it was symbolic. A private kingdom built by a man who believed the law was not a boundary. It was a tool. By the time DOJ unsealed the first indictment, the public only saw fragments. Drug manufacturing, money laundering, election interference, obstruction, conspiracy. But investigators knew those charges were just the beginning. Because every server rack led to another official. Every cold wallet led to another donor. Every file cabinet led to another state. And every state led back to the same question: how many people knew? In the final evidence photo taken inside the record room, there is one detail that does not look important at first. A handwritten note on Varick's desk. 4 words. Delay creates the verdict. That was his philosophy. Not winning openly. Not changing everything at once. Just delaying truth long enough for power to choose its own ending. But this time, the delay ended before sunrise. The island went quiet. The servers were boxed. The lab was sealed. The guests were let out under floodlights. And Elias Varick, the man who spent decades teaching America to trust the system, walked past federal agents with his hands cuffed in front of him. He did not look afraid. That may have been the most unsettling part. Because men like Varick do not believe they are criminals. They believe they are architects. And when architects build in darkness, the real question is never just what they built. It is who handed them the blueprints. So here is the question. If a system like this could grow inside courts, charities, universities, ports, and political networks people trust every day, was Elias Varick the mastermind? Or was he only the first name federal agents were allowed to say out loud? Drop your answer in the comments. Because the island was raided. The money was found. The documents were seized. But the real fortress may not have been on St. Meridian at all. It may have been the system that protected it.